So I've got all the pieces laid out here, and I've got them separated such that the pins are on the side that's basically going counterclockwise. So I just need to pull these pins out and glue them in, and then once that glue is set, then we'll be able to glue these together. Okay, time for the major glue up. These guys are all dry, and so I need to do two things when I glue this up. I need to make sure I pull it tight, and for that I'm going to use a strap clamp. This is basically just a ratchet and a strap. Tie it around here, knot it on the end. Let's see, I'll make sure I'm in the camera view. Knot it on the end here, and then tighten it up with a 9/16 wrench. That'll be around the outside. And then I also need to make sure it stays flat. So I'm going to build it on my table saw, and I don't want it, when I tighten that up, when I tighten up the strap, I don't want it to rack. I don't want it to, anything to pop up or whatever. So for that, I'm going to put a bunch of stuff on the top, and you know, stuff like a gallon of water weighs a couple of pounds. That'll work. And veggies. So here we go. Been a long road getting to this point. Almost disastrous. The correct names are written on the back, so as long as the 3 right and 4 right are both showing, those are the backs. And I had one, these were one almost flipped. Okay, so this has been sitting here with the weights on it, dried overnight. So you put this stuff down here on the floor. All the vegetables and everything. All right, now we got to undo this, undo the strap clamp here. So undo that. Hold the thing back here. There we go. And it's glued to the table. That's probably nice and stiff. That looks pretty good. All right, so there's some cleanup I got to do here. Some of these are still a little bit thicker than others, so belt sander, handheld belt sander, but it's nice and flat. It's not torquing anywhere at all, so that's really good. All right, next, belt sanding. Okay, so I've painted one side of the ring black, and the other side is still unpainted. It's this old, I don't know, blue, gray. But glue doesn't stick very well to the paint, so I'm going to belt sand this and get down to the bare wood, and then we're going to glue that onto the bare wood side. Oh. Any variances in this outside edge, I'm still going to have to belt sand part of the mahogany here and make it a little more even. So I'm not really super worried about if there's any inconsistencies here in the ring. But good thing I still have cans of veggies floating around. We gotta find one more. So my mom's a painter and does antiques, bought and sold stuff for years and years, and she uses these solid glass blocks. Aren't these cool? These solid glass blocks to weigh down her artwork when she does certain kinds of painting and ink work, paint and ink work. So I figured that's a good use for these. Probably should just use them everywhere. I hadn't thought of them until just now when I went over to look for something else to put up here. So, thing that I'm going to do, got it right here. This is a thin strip of mahogany that I cut off of part of the upright, and it's almost exactly the right size to go around this edge. So I'm actually gonna finish this edge in this piece of mahogany. I still have some little bit of trim, like I said, sanding trim to do on this edges here. Some of these are sticking out just a little bit far. I have to be really careful, take off a very small amount in order to make all that match. But I'm gonna glue this strip on the outside. Okay, for the 20 or 30 people who have watched the video so far on building the mirror frame, I've completely redone this end of the shop. I had a big piece of equipment back here, a 16-inch wide joiner, and the joiner's gone. And so be able to get some workspace back here. I set up a work table for working on the thing today. This strip right here is LEDs. Man, these things are super bright. they're almost too bright to look at comfortably, but they provide a great work light. They come in 4-foot strips, and they were like $80 at Home Depot. Just really cool. All right, let's get back to working on the frame finally. It's been, quite honestly, it's been weeks. I had to get the joiner out of here, reconfigure the shop, put in new lighting, so it's been a while. Okay, so this is all together, and what I've done here is just screwed a piece of wafer board on the back of the circle, making sure, of course, that I didn't drill through. I drilled these holes so nothing would, crack or anything. Making sure that the screws and the drill wouldn't go through the front. That would really just entirely suck. But I needed something. I needed a way to clamp this down while I worked on it with a belt sander. So now I have this work table set up, and I don't know if you can tell, I'm actually kneeling just to be able to get in shot here. That way I can clamp this thing down without worrying about hitting stuff and being able to run the sanders. Yeah, that's good and sturdy. Okay. All right. Where did I put my sander? All right, so the finest grit I have for my belt sander is 120 grit, and this belt's pretty worn, but still, it'll eat this mahogany, so I've got to be really careful to make sure that I just do this just as absolutely as gently as possible. That worked as good as I could have possibly hoped. All right. Two thumbs up. So at this point I'm going to change out to the random orbit sander. And work my way through a couple of grits. Change that out. I got here, this is some 100 grit garnet paper. I happen to have a case of this, so I use it for a lot of different things. Huh. Now this is longer than a quarter of a sheet. Need to lose about that much off of that. That's kind of weird. I almost always just make quarter sheets of stuff because that's what I use most often. Close enough. Go. Now this has an integral dust collector, so one of the accessories that comes with it is this little guy, which is not to be mounted on a wall, but I've never actually mounted it. Whoops. Oh! It's a hole punch, so that these can collect dust up into this whole dust collector. Works great. The wood's still a little bit uneven right here. I've actually got a little bit of glue. You probably can't see it in the video, but that's what I'm trying to get out. All right, next up, I still got one more machining operation because some of these edges are sitting a little bit proud, like this one right here. I can see that edge is catching, so I need to put that back on the belt sander. Okay, I've taken off my my bottom board here because I don't really need it anymore. What's on the bottom of this, of course, is now this plywood. So I don't care if the plywood is on the aluminum plate. Okay, now that I have all the edges all trimmed to the right width and there's thickness and there's no funny edges on the corners, everything's good. I'm going to put this banding around the edge. Now, I've only got enough clamps here to do a couple of edges at a time, maybe 3. So I'm going to like alternate them so that I have I'm going to cut these a little bit long so that they overhang a little bit, and then I can sand them off when they're glue's dried. So I need cut short pieces of that. Really, the best thing to cut with a fine grain like this, or when you want to do a real precise cut, is a Japanese saw that cuts on a pull stroke. This is a Dozuki. This is not a particularly expensive one. Man, these things are fantastic. All right, so I got all my clamps here. I got my glue here, and ready to cut a couple of pieces. So I'm just going to mark these a little bit long, and they're just unbelievable. The saws are, for this kind of work, these saws are just so perfect. And we'll do the next one over. This guy goes with that one. All right, let that dry. Okay, I scrounged around the shop and found a few more clamps, and I was able to do a 4th one. And then you see in some of these places, like the orange one that's kind of sticking out toward the camera here, I actually had to put a 3rd clamp on there because that was where there was a real sharp bevel, and that piece of banding stuck out beyond that wood clamp, and the edge of it wasn't working real great. So it wasn't real tight, so I got a little bit of extra support in there. It's not doing much. It's just enough to push it, that edge banding up against the face right there at the very end. Make sure I don't get a gap. That'll take a couple hours to dry. Okay, so now I've got over half of the edges on, and now comes the tricky bit, actually, because at this point I have to fit another edge piece between two edge pieces that already exist. So the question was, for me, how was I going to, how was I actually going to fit them in there? To date, I've been very picky about all these angles and corners and things. So I really figured how to keep doing that. But that means that every one of these angles has to be sawn to match the angle of the larger piece. And then I have to fit a piece in the middle that's exactly the right angles and exactly the right length. Okay, that's going to get a little bit fiddly. First thing I have to do is plane the tops of these faces down to match. I did the other ones before, so I'll plane these off first, and then I'll start cutting these edges down to meet the existing angles of the larger pieces. Got to follow the grain. I started doing this one the other direction, and I could feel the grain catch, and I don't want the grain to catch, so I need to make sure that I'm going with the grain going uphill so that I don't catch it and tear it. Unfortunately, the grain on this other piece is going the other direction, and so I got to make sure I don't catch the grain on the larger piece. I may have to do this with a card scraper. I probably should finish all of it with a card scraper by the time I'm done. All right, one more here. So I think what I'm going to do, in order to fit these, rather than trying to fit them all at once, I'd rather cut them on the Dozuki with the Japanese handsaw than do them on the belt sander. So I'm going to glue in one side, and then I'm going to leave this side long, and then I'll cut this with the saw and glue the other face in. Jam some glue in there and glue the other face in. So all these are going to get cut long and then just glued on one side, and then I can put some glue in there, cut it with the saw, and fit it in there. Theoretically, I can do that easier than I can do it with a belt sander. So, some of these are a little thicker. This is just edge banding I cut off of the bigger piece, so I'll have to file that off. 3. This one's exactly 90. That's good. Just make sure I get this right direction. Okay. It's getting a little thin. I think I have another piece of this back here. Oh look, more scrap. Now that's got some white in here. I don't want that. So I'm just gonna cut that off. And do it by eye and see how close I can get. That's pretty darn good. Let's get a little bit of a slope that way though. Ah, that's good. Okay. Right. One more. You guys don't need to see me do belt sanding. That edge isn't quite straight, but so I'm just going to sand this to match. All right, been a couple hours and the glue's dried. Time to remove the clamps, glue the other face. I got a glue brush so I can get glue in here. In fact, I'm just going to do this. I cannot believe that this thing is basically done. Some final finishes on here. I don't think that's grabbing. I have a couple instances where the camera probably won't show this because I've got it on manual focus, but that edge right there is sticking up a little bit proud. So I've got to carve that down a little bit. Probably the easiest way to do that is with the big belt sander. Yeah, right there. I'm just trying to split the difference here with the angles here so that there isn't a flat spot on all the corners. They're all right up to the edge, and all those angles are all split right between the wood. So I just got to finish sand some of these faces. Yep, time for a new piece. All right, using a tack cloth, make sure I get all the dust off of here. Oh, you know what I haven't done? Still some glue on the inside. I got to do the inside. Still got to do the inside. This is silly. I have all these clamps in here. What you can't see right here is that there's a little dent that I can see visually from the clamps, and so I'm trying to flatten that out. I am finally ready to put some finish on this thing. If you watched the first video, you'd seen I'm putting on oil modified polyurethane. This is the same finish that's on the rest of the mahogany in the bathroom. And the reason I'm using this oil modified is because it's a lot more moisture tolerant. It's going to be in a bathroom, so I want to keep it sealed. And it's water-based and it's easy to clean up. Pull a stir stick out of the pile. It says to stir it, not shake it. And the reason for that is because you don't want to get bubbles in it. All right, first coat done. All right, first coat's dry. The color matches came out really good. I tried to match colors across, so the pears are all the same kind of wood tone. I don't know if that can show up in the video. I'm hoping that it does. Came out really good. Time for the second coat. Okay, so second coat's been dry here a couple of hours. I got 2 hours between recoats with this polyurethane. I'm actually gonna. They say to sand between coats with 220. This is 400 wet dry, and I'm actually gonna wet sand in the third coat. It'll get rid of some unevenness and leave me with a better surface on the third, which is going to be the last coat. I'll leave the outside for last. I don't really need a quarter sheet here, but that left me the best rest of the sheet for another use. I am going with the grain on this, and I can see some places where there's a little bit of unevenness, so I'm making sure that I get that a little bit extra. Kind of letting the paper float on top of the fluid. That should be it. All right, so I'm going to hold the mirror on to the back of the frame with these 4 flat brackets, and there's 3 holes here that are somewhat in a line here on the corner, and I'm going to use those and screw those into the plywood. But that means that this corner is going to stick out, so I need to knock this corner off and do that on a bench grinder. All right, so the last thing I do with these, now that I got the corners rounded over, is I'm going to spray them, obviously I want them black, just to match the back of the plywood, but I also want something protective so that the metal doesn't come directly in contact with the glass. I could just glue on some fabric or something, but I happen to have a can of plastic dip, flat black, and so I'm going to spray them. Essentially this is a rubber coating, so they'll be covered in a rubber. It'll be black and it'll protect the glass. So like most garage tinkerers, I've got a lot of miscellaneous stuff floating around, and I found a bag that's got 6 screws that are just the size that I need, 1/2 inch long. Hex head, they're Phillips head, which I like. I don't like flat, they're a nuisance. But I've only got 6. I got 4 brackets, 3 screws each. I need 12. Dig into the bucket of screws. Two. Three. 4. I can hear everybody on the internet going, "There's one!" There we go. All right, so the polyurethane is dry, and I'm not happy with the way the surface looks. I wanted the polyurethane to make sure it got sealed against the moisture, but the surface, not happy. The polyurethane is just too thick. I can still see the brush strokes in it. It came out a little uneven in terms of shininess. Some of the areas are shiny, some areas are dull. Yeah, you guys were probably hollering at me through the computer. Don't use polyurethane after all that work. Well, I needed it for its water proofing. But this is my go-to finish for stuff. This is Bartley Gel Varnish. I don't even know if Bartley's still around. But this is manufactured by Lawrence McFadden Company, lawrence-mcfadden.com. And this stuff is fantastic. It's almost, you can almost not screw up a finish with this stuff. And I love the way the surface of it finishes out. So I'm going to wet sand a layer of that on. It goes on very thin. It's what's called a wiping varnish. So you wipe it on and then polish it off. I'm using this. This is a synthetic fabric, and the reason I'm using this is because it doesn't pill. This gel varnish will pull pills out of anything like cotton that's not a really good weave. And so I bought this really ugly remnant at a fabric store many, many years ago, and the ladies were like, "Oh, it's so pretty." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm going to use it to put varnish on furniture." They were appalled. I think it's really ugly, but to each his own, I suppose. So I'm going to use half of this to wipe it on and half of it to wipe it off. One thing you have to do is let these rags dry out. Don't just throw them somewhere where they're gonna build up any kind of fumes. Put them on something where they're gonna, like this, where they're gonna dry out. Because otherwise they could be an explosion fire hazard. Sitting out like that, they're just gonna dry. Okay, so I got completely pissed off at the way the surface finish looked and stripped it down with 100 grit sandpaper. Didn't go all the way into the surface of the wood, but I took the surface of the finish all the way down. Then resanded it with 400 grit emery paper and put on 3 or 4 coats of Bartley's. Now I love the way it looks. It's got a really nice even sheen. See if I can show it here in the see where the light reflects all the way around. So now I'm really happy with it, and it is ready to have the mirror mounted in it. So from the back, what we're going to do is, my lovely wife gave me some. This is like a synthetic wool. I don't want the mirror, the glass, to sit hard against this wood, so I'm going to strip of fabric, put it all the way around, and I'll hot glue that down just so it doesn't go anywhere. Put the mirror on that, and then I've got my my metal plates that I made, and these have been coated in a plastic dip, and they're going to screw on here. They're actually going to screw onto the not onto the mahogany directly, but they're going to screw onto the on plywood like that. So first up, I got to cut some strips of this fabric to go. This is a lovely purple, but it's really a fabric. So I only need a strip about wide, about yay wide. edge up and just do this all at once. Some of those are a little thin, but so I'm probably gonna. I don't really want tucks in it as it goes around, so I may have to snip shorter pieces of this and glue it in. Alright, let's get the hot glue gun fired up here. I think we're gonna call that close enough. There's my screws. There we go. These are just little short wood screws. I made sure they won't go all the way through, so I'm going to pre-drill them, but I have to make sure that I don't drill too far. So I'm just going to drill these deep enough to start the screws, not to go the whole way through. Ta-da! Finally. So today is June the 21st. I have been working on this since middle of April, so you guys have been along for a fun ride. Get this hung in the bathroom and get some final pictures. So I had to take it in the house and show the wife, and she loved it, so that's good. Little picture hanging hook kit I bought from, I don't know, Walgreens or something. And we're going to reuse the, let's see if there's here, maybe no, those are too big. I was thinking I was going to reuse these holes that I had used for the supports, but those are too small for that. 3, 4. So what we're going to do is we're going to hang these guys, use these big heavy ones, these big heavy hooks on the wall. I'm going to put 2 of those in. So I was going to reuse those holes. I guess I need to do something else. I'm going to put 2 of them here so that the load is spread between two sets of the hooks. I've seen that technique done before. So I think I'll just start the screws, and they need to be pretty symmetric. So let's measure down from the top. As soon as I figure out what I do with tape measure. That's what I really want. Oh, my square. Okay. So let's put these at 4.5 inches down. All right, so I'm going to try and put this on a line from the middle here down to the middle point. 4.5 inches. So start a couple of holes there and here. There we go. Let's time to hang her up. Okay, so the one thing is, I'm so tall, and the way that these lights are mounted, you can see that the bottom of this is basically at my eye level. So I really need the top of this to be kind of give me maximum glass, so the top of this actually needs to be all the way up behind the light fixture. And it's just the way it rolls. So if I look from behind, the wire and the top of the keystone are approximately the same height. The wire, if I have 2 of them in here, they're just about the same height from there to there. Let's see if I can get that in the picture. So here to there. So I know approximately where I need to put it, which is basically right at the bottom of this line. So it's right in here. Put the mirror down carefully. Grab these 2 big hooks out of here. Couple of nails. Alright, so I actually need to put this, believe it or not, right behind that bell. So I'm going to actually have to remove the light bell to do that. There's a ring inside. So this needs to go right here, and I'm just going to put them on either side of this. And remember, you can't start them up here at the top of the nail, because then when they slide down, they'll actually be lower, because they'll go down this slope of this nail. So there's one. All right. Neat old mirror. Well, I got some. It's raining outside. I got a couple of raindrops on it as I was coming in. So, rotate this around here just a hair. That completes the 13 segmented mahogany mirror frame. I'm pretty darn happy with it. Thanks a lot for everybody who watched it, all 20 or 30 of you. Let me know if you want me to do more woodworking videos, or make them shorter, or this was too ridiculous, or whatever. Leave me some comments. Thanks.